Hello there, and a very warm welcome to Chazingdra Chats, the show where we take a stroll through the life stories of people in the Pokémon community, discovering the 6 Pokémon on their dream team along the way. I'm Charlie Merriman, I'm merry by name, I'm merry by nature, otherwise known as Chazingdra, a host and commentator for the Pokémon Video Game Championship Series, and a content creator, and this week as every week, I very much hope my guest and I can make your day merry, because I have the pleasure of being joined by Marcos Perez, otherwise known as MOXIE Boosted. Marcos, how you doing?
I'm doing good. It's a good morning.
Good. Very pleased to hear it, and I gather that you slept well last night as well, so we love to hear it. Marcos and I haven't met in person, but of course we know of each other through the competitive Pokemon community. For anyone who's not so familiar with you, Marcos, can you give a brief introduction to yourself?
Yeah, so obviously my name is Marcos. I run a YouTube channel called MOXIE Boosted. I've been uploading VGC content since late 2016. Did it all throughout college, and then it just sort of took off right after college, maybe towards, the end of my senior year. And now it's my full-time thing, and I get to play Pokemon for a living, which is something my mom didn't think was possible when I said I wanted to be a Pokemon trainer when I was 4.
Yeah, it's a wonderful story, and I'm looking forward to diving more into it. I mean, the fact that you kept it going throughout college as well, that is no mean feat, and I'm sure we'll hear more about everything that went into that very shortly. But real-life Pokemon trainers, in this day and age, it can happen. So let this episode inspire you, everybody. Alright then, shall we do this, Marcos?
Yeah, let's go.
Alright, let's take a deeper dive into your life story and your 6 Dream Team Pokemon. What we're starting with here, well, exactly that. Doing YouTube throughout college.
Yeah, YouTube throughout college was a really interesting thing to tackle, because if I remember correctly, what happened was I started my YouTube channel in my senior year of high school. I graduated in 2016, so that was during a double restricted format. We were playing Xerneas Primal Groudon mirrors all the time, and that was really fun. I enjoyed that, so I started making videos about it. I wasn't the best. I actually think that I'm someone who learned the game mostly through trial and error rather than guides and stuff, because that was the era of, not necessarily like the era that'd probably be closer to like 2013, but it was really rare to see in-game content at that time still for the competitive side of things. I think I mostly watched Aaron at the time. I think James started his channel prior to then as well, and I saw some of his videos, but effectively I was not putting out the greatest quality guides. I was mostly just recording myself learning the game, and people sort of grew attached to that side of things, where it's literally just a documentation of someone who isn't the best learning how to play it. Sun and Moon came out, and at that time I was a little more competent at the competitive side of things, and I put out some guides on how to use specific Pokemon, and I ended up getting, I think, to my first 1,000 subscribers towards like the first month of Sun and Moon, and of course at that time that's enough to get monetized. So YouTube was a very nice little side gig. I think I might have earned like $100 every couple of months, because it's just the nature of things when you have a small channel. But I entered college, and I originally was going for I wanted to be an aerospace engineer, and that slowly transitioned into me taking physics classes at Illinois State and getting really into that side of things, and I really fell in love with physics. So yeah, now I'm in college, and I have 3 things going on. I have to, 1, pay my tuition, 2, do my classes, and 3, maintain a YouTube channel. So of course I got a job. It was almost like working 2 jobs, because I was so obsessed with YouTube that I almost treated it like that at the time, even though it wasn't nearly to that level. I was very dedicated to getting like my videos out every like couple of days. And it was really funny because I kind of became a social butterfly during college as well. So the balancing act of school, my job at school, YouTube, and still making friends at that time was really challenging, but I think it prepared me for what was ahead. And it was kind of funny because my friends would ask me like, "Where do you disappear to after classes? You can't be doing your homework that much. We're freshmen. We're like sophomore. It's not that hard yet." And I was like, "Oh, I make like Pokemon videos," and it was kind of fun. I got my friends involved once in a while. We even had another generation drop while I was still in college. It was obviously Sword and Shield, and I remember. I went MIA for maybe 3 weeks. I locked myself in my room, and my friends were like, "This is a big deal to him. We understand it." And Sword and Shield was like the biggest boom that my channel had at that time. Obviously, every new generation is like, the tide. You know the term like a rising tide. Was it like raises all ships or something? Yeah, everyone's ship rose in 2020 because. Man, I remember like the YouTube scene just being a few people with like 500 subscribers, 1,000 subscribers. It's kind of funny just how far behind the competitive side of YouTube for Pokemon was compared to like shiny hunting and stuff at that time. It really was like a big boom. Yeah, it definitely sort of affected my grades here and there when when that generation came out. Because I became a little bit more into my YouTube channel than ever because you get like all this positive feedback. And it was always funny letting it slip because I wasn't like the most proud of what I put out on YouTube in my social life because it's like my nerdy little thing that I like. And I was a little embarrassed of it, but I eventually grew to own it. And it made it a lot more fun to do YouTube because people would ask me about it and go like, "Oh, are you good at your game?" And I would go, "People like watching me play it," was always my answer. But it was a fun time in college. Just getting to basically earn a little bit extra money through playing Pokemon. It was enough to cover my rent for my apartment during college, and that was basically it. I think I had to pay like $500 a month for like my portion of it with my 4 roommates, and that allowed for me to use the rest towards paying like my loans and my tuition and stuff. And it was a really great opportunity for me, and I think I managed to take full advantage of it, even if at sometimes my priorities got mixed up.
Well, so intense. Hats off to you for trying to juggle all of those things. I'm sure you did the best you could with your college work as well. But everyone listening, yeah, make sure you get those priorities in order. When you're in college, make sure you're doing the work that you need to do at as high a level as you possibly can. It's a common theme of the show that as soon as people realise they need to own what they're doing, no matter how embarrassed they might be, no matter what they think other people might think about it, the more swiftly happiness comes. So I'm very pleased to hear that. And the Aaron and the James that you mentioned near the beginning there, Aaron Jang and James Beck, of course, more competitive Pokemon Video Game Championships or VGC content creators. And now, of course, you're in amongst their ranks in terms of your standing as a channel. How does that feel, having seen them and aspired to be them and now being in the same league?
It was interesting. I guess the best way to put it is like when you're a YouTuber, you really there's like 2 mindsets to it. There's the one, I want to be the biggest YouTube channel, which I don't think is the healthiest mindset because like I said earlier, rising tide like raises all boats or ships or whatever the saying is. I should have paid more attention in college. No, I'm good. I went to school for physics. I didn't go to school for literature. But basically, how it works is you should strive to raise up the other people around you, because the more that people are talking about the thing that you make content about, the better everyone does. So in like recent years, I've put together like servers for other content creators to like come and collaborate and give each other advice and just make sure that everyone's like putting out the best stuff that they can, because it helps everybody. Watching like Aaron and James, I knew that I wasn't at that same level of play, but I also understood that that wasn't my niche. I wasn't the person that people went to for the highest level of gameplay. For me, it was people really enjoyed seeing me just throw stuff at the wall and see, what sticks. And learning the game, I think I got a lot of comments like that where it's like, you know, I was like the relatable guy where it was like you had no idea what you were doing, and then you like slowly figure it out, and every once in a while you have like a brief moment of inspiration where you go, oh wait, this works, this is like a duo that works. I think the funniest one of those was Thievel and Tapu Lele or Indeedee in like early Sword and Shield. I picked up on Thievel like I think a couple of days before. I forget what region they were. They might have been Japanese players. It was like right before like Collinsville regionals happened. I like picked up on that and I took it to the event, and I didn't do incredible. It was like my first event in many, many years because I only went to like one in 2018. But it was mostly just like I found that my niche was experimentation and trying goofy stuff and learning the game. But yeah, no, being in like the same YouTube league, at least, as like James and, Aaron is really cool. I guess like there's no other way to put it. You watch people growing up and then now it's like, oh, we are peers. I didn't think that would happen, you know?
Yeah, it must be so surreal. I love Thievel. I love foxes. They're my favourite animals, so I'm thrilled to you talk about that. And my final question on this point, Marcus, is, you know, you started this channel where you're trying out competitive Pokemon, but what led you to do that in the first place? Had you played Pokemon when you were younger?
This is actually a very funny story. You might have noticed from the conversation we had prior to starting the podcast, I have trouble sleeping a lot, and that was especially true in high school, and I would go on YouTube on my phone and just look up like random championships. I was really curious to see if there was such thing as a Beyblade championship. And I looked it up, and there was a Beyblade championship, and one of the recommended videos on that was the 2014 Pokemon World Championships finals. So I watched, you know, Jody get absolutely demolished by a Pachirisu. And that was what really got me interested in the game. I think that's like a similar story for a lot of people. I think 2014, so like the biggest tournaments I think that got people into the game were definitely like 2014 and 2016. Those are like those are the two Worlds finals that I think inspired the most people around that time. And after learning what that was, I was like, oh man, I really want to play Pokemon again. And I had played Pokemon growing up, obviously. I played Fire Red and Emerald. And then I think it was around like 2008, I was still playing those games because a recession hit and my family wasn't able to afford a DS. So I played Ruby, I think until like 2010, 2011, like well into like the later generations. And then I kind of dropped it. And around the age of like 15 or 16, whenever I started my YouTube channel, was when I got like my first job, and I was able to buy my own 3DS. I was able to get the game, and what is the first game I play other than Pokemon Omega Ruby, the remake of the game that I last played. And that was really cool. Getting to re-experience that, and then finding out about the competitive scene and learning it. Yeah, no, it literally was just, I got into competitive Pokemon because of a YouTube video, and I had the game in my hand, and I'm like, okay, let's try it out. And I think my first team, it was not incredible. I think my first team was technically a VGC 2015 team because it was right at the end of that, right before they announced GS Cut for 2016. And if I remember, it was like a Mega Absol, Arcanine, Spinda, and a bunch of other just like stuff that you find going through like the Hoenn region plus an Arcanine, you know. So it wasn't incredible, but I did know Intimidate was good. Got that one right.
Sounds like a lot of fun, though. And again, this is obviously something that all of your subscribers appreciate seeing, trying to make these Pokemon we don't tend to see work. And on that note, Marcos, it's now time to go over into what's going to be the first Pokemon joining your Dream Team. So as a reminder, everybody, the aim here is not for Marcos to build the most competitively viable team in any way. It's just Pokemon that have been the most special to him over the years, and he can find that in whichever way he would like. I have no idea what they are. He's decided on these in advance. So tell us, Marcos, what's going to be the first Pokemon on your Dream Team?
I might as well pick this one on my list. Spinda. Spinda is the first one on my dream team. I like him. I like him. He's got 60 base stats across the board. 60. There are 6 stats. That's 360. Spinda spins. That's why he's never getting buffed because it's 360.
You are blowing my mind, Marcus.
Did you not know that?
Yeah, no, I hadn't thought about it like that. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, Spinda, dizzy little panda, and of course represents that first team oh so perfectly. Maybe with Legends ZA coming out, I don't know, maybe we'll get a Mega Spinda, maybe we'll get an Evolution of Spinda one day. Hopefully, Marcos, what I'm saying is that we'll be able to see Spinda a bit more in competitive Pokemon, but a perfect first addition to your dream team. Spinda, welcome to Marcos' dream team, and if you're enjoying everybody, please do like and subscribe. Plenty more conversation to have with Marcos, and as Marcos can attest to, all of them really do go such a long way. But we're going to move over from there now into meeting MJ.
Yeah, that actually ties pretty well into the end of my last story. Well, not the Spinda one, the the college one. So there was an artist on Twitter for a long time that had their like location set to Illinois and would make like Pokemon content, just drawing Pokemon and stuff. And their name was Atrix MJ. And one day I mentioned on Twitter that I was going to be heading to Collinsville Regionals, and I get a DM from them saying, hey, me and my partner are heading to Collinsville Regionals as well. Would you like to meet up and get lunch? And I was like, sure. Turns out this guy, MJ, even though I lived at Illinois State at the time, actually lived not 20 minutes from my like home up north in Illinois. And we started talking, and we just became very close friends over the years. And I really appreciated the art that they put out for all this time. So what ends up happening is we keep in contact. We start our own podcast for a little bit. We become just very close friends. And when I finally do decide to make the move to, during college, my income was very limited. That's my cat. During college, my income was very limited, so all of my YouTube stuff I did on my own. I didn't have any editors. I didn't have any artists. I couldn't afford to do that. I graduate, get my first job, and realize that the money that I'm making from YouTube, that is now just gravy. That's just extra money that I have. So I decide to reinvest all the money that I make from YouTube into the channel itself, and I bring on MJ as my artist, and we collaborated on videos basically for a very long time. He would make the thumbnails, I would make the videos, and I noticed that putting that extra effort into improving how my content was presented actually paid dividends. While I was working my job, I believe my channel went from around 30,000 subscribers to, I think I hit 60,000 just before Pokemon Scarlet and Violet dropped. So MJ's been a very good friend to me. We like team build for tournaments. We butt heads a lot over our style of play, which is really funny because something we'll get into later. I play the game very slowly. I play very slowly and methodically. I love my Wo-Chien. And MJ is very much like which button knocks them out. Which you could argue that the best way to play the game is doing what he does, but a little more methodically. But yeah, no, MJ has just been a phenomenal friend to me. Someone who I wanted to bring up because like it's a case of how this game sort of brings people together that you wouldn't have otherwise met. I have made some of my closest friends in my life at these tournaments. I've met like Jody, Sierra, obviously MJ, my friend Balin, my friend Ash. Like they are just people who, had it not been for me getting into competitive Pokemon, I would have never had the opportunity to meet, let alone get so close with. So I just wanted to like highlight the idea that this game sort of brings people who have no reason to be in the same vicinity as each other, in the same room, and who grew up with the exact same interests as far as Pokemon and like video games go. and just gives them an opportunity to form these relationships. And I find that kind of beautiful, because I think that like a lot of people who grew up playing video games generally did it in a solitary way. It was, I'm going to play my little JRPG on like my Game Boy or my DS. And, you know, people who tend to play a lot of games alone maybe don't have like the most friends on earth. And, you know, you're getting into your like teens, you're focusing on school, you get into like your 20s, you're focusing on your career. And then this hobby that you picked up along the way that almost like connects you back to your childhood is what's giving you this like opportunity to socialize with people who you otherwise wouldn't have met. And I really appreciate the social aspect of this game. I think that is by far my favorite thing about it. Being able to like meet all these people is basically what I live for at this point, you know?
Yeah. 100%. I mean, I think the fact that we're talking to each other on this podcast is testament to that as well. You know, just hear of each other and we make that sort of connection. And yeah, such a welcoming community it is as well. So beautiful words there, Marcos. And yeah, Jody, as you mentioned, Jody Azarelli, you also mentioned before, the runner-up at the 2014 World Championship. Someone else I featured on this podcast, and you can check that out on the channel, but cards for all of those, that episode and others that I think you will enjoy, will appear towards the end. Thank you very much indeed, Marcos. And now it's time to discover who's going to be joining Spinder. Who's Pokemon number 2?
Trying to go with something relevant to this. We'll go with Golisopod. We'll go with Golisopod. It's not necessarily relevant to that, but it's just one of my favorite Pokemon. I just love the idea of, you know, Golisopod being at one point a Wimpod, right? And he's growing up. He's getting tough. He's no longer wimping out. He's tactically retreating with emergency exit. But no, he is really wimping out. It's just like he's big now. It's a front. It really is just a front. He's leaving. I just like that. I like how cowardly it is. It's really goofy.
Yeah, Wimpod. Small, as you say, a kind of wimpy pre-evolution of Glyspod. And yeah, Wimp Out, the ability, it will remind us what that ability does, because Glyspod and Wimpod aren't in Scarlet and Violet. It's something like they take damage and they switch to the back immediately. Yeah,
so if you drop below 50, or if you drop to 50% or below, it immediately switches out. And during like during Scarlet and Violet, Sun and Moon, the last 3 generations started with S's, so I'm mixing them up. During Sun and Moon, I really liked this Pokemon. Bug Water is actually like really solid defensively. This thing's a beast. It gets Wide Guard, First Impression, Sucker Punch. They buff Leech Life in Gen 7, so now he's got like really good recovery. And then it just switches out below half HP. So it's not great. It's really hard to like keep the momentum going when you have to like pivot that often.
Yeah, emergency exit, exactly the same, right, as Wimp Out.
Exactly the same. That's why I find it so funny. It isn't even just like giving you an option to switch. It's no, you're switching.
You're right. Yeah, no, you're so right. And I think it's there's something quite poetic about the fact that, as you say, it's the same person or the same being, just in a different casing. Let's say, Glyspod, welcome to Marcus's Dream Team. So from here, we are going to do our emergency exit over to what you've titled the whole Wo-Chien thing.
The whole Wo-Chien thing. Okay, I'm really glad I have this right here. So let me explain, right? So, like I said, I really like playing slowly and methodically, and I sort of discovered that in really, really late 2018 when I was playing Mega Manectric, Gothitelle, Tapu Bulu teams. That was like an archetype where effectively, because Mega Manectric, also Tapu Fini, I forget who ran it first, but there was a team that used Waterium Z Tapu Fini and Rain Dance Mega Manectric, and they had such good synergy because you could just use Tapu Fini to just annihilate something on the field while keeping it safe with Manectric. And then if a Kartana came in, you had a couple of options. You could either, Mega and intimidate it, probably making sure Tapu Fini lives, but, Leaf Blade can crit. Or you could just go for like Overheat, right? It was a really cool duo, and they would pair it with like Gothitelle and Incineroar, and it was really pivot heavy, but because Gothitelle was on the field, things couldn't switch out after getting Eerie Impulsed, after getting intimidated. It was just like you controlled the field, right? Really loved playing that. And then Pokemon Scarlet and Violet comes out, and Tapu Bulu is no longer the best Pokemon, and I really like Tapu Bulu. But now we have this grass type with access to like Pollen Puff and Foul Play and Snarl, and it has like a permanent debuff on attack stats on Switch, and I go, this thing's gonna be incredible. It wasn't. But I was committed. I was committed to making that work. So all throughout Regulation C and beyond, I made it my goal to day 2 an event with Wo-Chien. And my first try, I got very close. I think I ran like a full stall team. We had like Garganico, Wo-Chien, Glamora. I had a Palafin and Arcanine. My friend Joe Ugarte actually helped me build it right before the event. And what ended up happening was I was in the final round, and when you play just pure stall, and it was like at this time, because it was 2021, it was 9-round day 1, right? Not 8 round, which is a little more manageable. I was in the 9th round. It was my winning in, and I was so mentally exhausted from pivoting and protecting and trying to preserve my Glamora, so on the right turn it got hit by a physical attack, that there was a very clear win condition that involved me switching an Arcanine to intimidate a Great Tusk and outspeeding and KOing a Kingambit with Jet Punch, right? But because I was so tired, in my mind, when I saw that line, I went, oh, I'm going to proc Defiant if I switch this in on the Kingambit, so I shouldn't do that. It never would have mattered. It was an AV Kingambit that couldn't protect. Jet Punch goes first. It never would have mattered. And I remember my friends were watching me throw this match over my shoulder because we were one of the last people finishing up their sets. And I go, oh, wow, I really did throw that match, didn't I? So I got really close my first time. And then I just kept building different Wo-Chien teams, kept adapting. At one point, I even ran Corrosion Glamora because it let me poison, Terra Poison Ting-Lu and Amoonguss, like turn 1 with Mortal Spin. That team did pretty decent. And I kept like trying and failing to day 2 with this thing until eventually I just dropped it. I said, you know what? I want to get my Worlds invite. I keep grinding out these like, I think it was, I forget what the payout was, like 50-point events. Like I kept getting like 50 points. And I said, I need to lock in. I'm dropping the snail for a little bit. And then Reg G comes out, and finally I just go like, I can probably get away with it if I put a Calyrex on the team. And I do that. And I end up not only earning my invite with that event, but getting my first day 2 with Wo-Chien. So I just became so dedicated to this snail after just eroding my brain with how this snail works. I'm not joking. I was telling people like Chien-Pao doesn't seem that strong. I don't get why people use it. And then like the minute I take the snail off the team, I go, whoa, this thing's got hands. Because I was never playing with Sword of Ruin active. There was always a snail with like Terra Water on the field. So yeah, I like basically exclusively played Wo-Chien for like an entire year, and then the World Championships comes up. I have a viewer who does like 3D modeling, like 3D printing, metal 3D printing. It's so cool. And he like offers, he goes, hey, do you want a gold-plated Wo-Chien? And I go, yeah. So I end up ordering this gold-plated Wo-Chien statue that's like about yay big. So this is a gold-plated Wo-Chien.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah, so I joked around. I put it on a gold chain, and I wore it around the event. I was like, this is the Wo-Chain. And I took that to Worlds. And I guess I got a second day 2 with Wo-Chien at NAIC. It was around the same time. Me and the Tangs, Justin Tang and Shiliang, we all ended up landing serendipitously at the exact same concept of fast Wo-Chien, slow Kyogre with Pollen Puff for the same event. Just randomly, like, it just happened. My team was significantly different from theirs, other than that thing. And I did day 2 that event as well. So at that point, I said I'm going to bring Wo-Chien to Worlds, and I brought an adaptation of that team. I dropped like my Farigiraf for Raging Bolt because I just wanted to make sure I had a slightly better matchup into Zamazenta. But I ended up doing not the best at Worlds. I think I finished 2 and 6, right? Which I was mostly just happy I made it to Worlds anyways. Like that was I brought the snail. I used the snail to qualify for Worlds, and then I brought it to Worlds. The story's done. I finished that arc. And it was just a whole chapter in my life where I was basically, if someone saw Wo-Chien, they would go like, "Oh, that's Marcos. That's the Marcos Pokemon." And there's multiple clips that I keep like bookmarks of the commentators at events talking about like, "Oh, Marcos brought Wo-Chien," and then they would just like do these like quick little like goofs on me because we're buddies. And I think like one time Joe said, there is a similar team that's running around here, but they're using a Mungus instead. And then he's like, it's pretty interesting. Maybe there are better grass types than Wo-Chien out there. I just like, I have a little folder of every time they like mention the Wo-Chien and me on stream because I wanted to make like a compilation one day. But yeah, no, the whole Wo-Chien thing was just a really funny arc that I got to play as like a bit. I sort of like took it as like a storytelling moment. I was like, I'm gonna make this funny. But yeah, no, I love Wo-Chien.
Yeah, really interesting. Your playstyle is like the complete opposite of the way I prefer to play Pokemon, with faster, let's just step on the gas. So yeah, I hope that we never go up against each other in a tournament. For other reasons I do, but in terms of our contrasting playstyles, I think maybe you'd win the stamina game. But anyway, really fascinating. And so the fact that Worlds 2024 was the first time you qualified for Worlds?
Yeah, 2024 was the first time I qualified for Worlds. I got fairly close in 2023, but I was still working my full-time job at that point, and I got so burnt out because I was really anxious to ask for time off to go to events. So I never did. Never once did I ask for time off. I effectively would just pack my bag up before I went to work. I would get off at like 4:30. I would get in my car, drive to the airport, pay for parking, go to the event, leave Sunday night. Sometimes I would like arrive at 4 a.m. back in like Chicago, and I would just drive right into work.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
So I got burnt out doing that.
Yeah.
And I just gave up on the 2023 season at that point.
Sure, yeah. But the fact that you started your channel very much just sort of exploring, let's try and learn the competitive game, and then you reach that point, I mean, you must have felt pretty proud of yourself.
Oh, yeah. No, I've always had like a bit of like an imposter syndrome when it comes to like how well I play the game. And it mostly has to do with the fact that I most of my practice is not really the type of practice you want for a tournament. It's using teams that I'll never touch again. My fundamentals are pretty good because of that, like because I just take teams that people send me and use them all the time. But I think that when it comes to using my own teams that I make, I do that maybe once a week for a couple of hours, and then I put them down, and then I forget to play again until maybe 2 or 3 days before the tournament, and then that's when I roll up. And I mostly get carried to like a possible day 2, or like I don't think it's been a very long time since I missed points. I at minimum get points basically just off of fundamentals, but it's this lack of like practice that I think keeps me from really excelling as much as I could. So chasing that day 2 was something that I was like really, really proud of. And the fact that I not only got my first day 2, but qualified for Worlds in 2024 was something that I was really happy to finally do, because I always wanted to do that. I just never, it was either I wasn't going to events or I wasn't practicing. And then one year it just worked out where it was like, hey, you know what? I have time to go to events. I basically get practice from doing YouTube every day. And it worked out. I managed to do it.
Incredible story. Well, It's now time to discover what's going to be the third Pokemon on your dream team, but I have a pretty strong suspicion as to what it might be. But,
that's Wo-Chien. That's going to be Wo-Chien. Yeah. I love my snail.
Wo-Chien, of course, slithering its way onto your dream team. And now, your next topic that you mentioned that you want to talk about is Worlds 2024. You've sort of given us a little bit of a flavour there. But talk to us about what it was like actually being there and the sort of opponents you went up against and, your feelings towards the atmosphere and so on.
Yeah, so Worlds 2024 was something that it finally got me to practice the game. It finally got me to practice the game. I was entering like grassroots tournaments basically every other day from like the beginning of June until Worlds actually happened in August. And that was a really interesting time to be me, because I finally found myself getting exhausted from doing something other than YouTube and streaming. And it was, wow, practicing this game is very difficult and very time consuming. So I put a lot of prep work into my team. I even, for the first time in like ever, brought on other people to test the team with me, because at that point, when you like make it to Worlds, and like if you have friends that like did not make it to Worlds, it's almost like you're sort of, they can vicariously play at Worlds by helping you prepare for the event. And a lot of people were very excited to help me prepare for Worlds. Did I let them down? Maybe, but it was really nice. My friends Saris, MJ, Balin, C Buddy, they all helped me build the team. Finally arriving in Hawaii was kind of surreal. I hadn't been to Hawaii since like 2018, I think, just to visit a friend. So I was familiar with what it was like, but I always forget just how beautiful that place is. And I landed, I got to my hotel. I just explored the island for the next couple of days. And the thing about Worlds is that it's not a regional, it's not an international. It is the World Championships. So a lot of people go out of their way to make it to this event. So I got to meet some people who I've known for many years on the internet, like Jamie Keane. I got to hang out with him. And it was really just cool seeing the entirety, basically, of like the competitive Pokemon community in one space, and getting to like just experience this very important thing to all of us, with them. It was less so the event that I was focused on and more so just taking it in. Because I think like the end of 2023 and the beginning of 2024 was a very like tumultuous time in my life. And just getting to relax, and because like I said, I wasn't terribly concerned with how I did at Worlds. It was mostly like experiencing it that I cared about. It's one of very few times I think in my life where I think I just had a grin on my face for like days. Like I was so happy just to be there. Yeah, I mean, I spoiled some of the World story by talking about like the Wo-Chien thing, but I think one of my favorite memories from Worlds was when I did actually, finish the tournament at 2-6, and I said, I have a really funny idea, and I had this idea in my head for like a day. So I walked out. I was hanging out with Yotam and his wife, and I hand Yotam my phone, and I start framing a picture. And I put the Wo-Chien little figurine on the ground, knocked over, and I put like my Switch and my controller and my team sheet, and I just sort of pose like I'm walking away. And I have Yodam take the picture of just my feet walking away from this, as there's a whole bunch of people in the venue sort of like going different directions. And I post the picture and I just go, it was dumb anyways. Because I did the Wo-Chien thing and people associated me with the Pokemon for over a year. So just being able to like put a cap on it and go like, okay, we're done. We're done. I don't have to do that anymore. I no longer have to carry this snail everywhere I go. That was like one of my favorite memories. And then of course there's doing karaoke with my friends, trying out all the food. Like I said, I very much live for the social aspect of this game, and that was undoubtedly my favorite trip that I have ever taken because of that.
Wow. It's wonderful to hear that you were just thrilled to be along for the ride at the World Championships. It's all about the different aspirations that we set ourselves. It's not necessarily becoming the world champion. It could just be, as in your case, just qualifying for Worlds there to have a good time with the Pokemon that carried you there. Wo-Chien, but from Wo-Chien now to what's going to be the fourth Pokemon on your dream team alongside Spinder and Wo-Chien and Golisopod.
Yes. I think that for this one, I'm going to have to go with Go-Goat. No particular reason. I just like him. I like his vibe. You know what? He's got nothing going on competitively. He's just a chill guy. I really like that Pokemon.
Yeah, but I think that the being a chill guy really speaks volumes as to what you were talking to us about just then, being in Hawaii, just being a chill guy, just enjoying the vibes around the World Championships. I know what you mean about Go-Go. It's definitely got that sort of trusty, loyal vibe.
Exactly.
And that's another grass type on your team. You've got normal and bug and water otherwise, as well as dark. Do you have a particular affinity for the grass type?
I really like Tapu Bulu. There's something about mid-tier grass types that just pulls me in. I like Venusaur. I don't know what it is. The grass types always have really killer designs.
Very interesting. Yeah, and I'm sure that Wo-Chien bolstered that love no end. But Go-Go, welcome to the team. Now we're going to hop on our Go-Goats and ride over from there to now why you went full-time on YouTube.
Yeah, this is actually a story that I've shared a few times on like my channel whenever someone asks me like what caused me to go full time. But this has to do a lot with like mental health and workload. Basically what happened was after my 24th birthday, I was driving to work. It was like 3 days after the fact. And at this time I was effectively working 2 full-time jobs because YouTube had taken off to a point where not making videos every single day felt like I was wasting an opportunity. But I also went to college, got a job with my college degree, and I was like, I really need to make the most of something that's like a sure thing, right? So being caught between those two worlds eventually culminated in me having my first panic attack. And it was because I was getting up at 5 a.m. I was trying to like maintain my physical health. So I would work out at like my home gym, and then, which was literally just like a treadmill and a bench set that I left in my living room at my apartment. But I would work out, and then I would hastily eat my breakfast, and I would drive to work. I lived like 40 minutes from my job, right? So I would drive 40 minutes to work. I would work there. I didn't go anywhere for lunch because it was sort of in the middle of nowhere. So my lunch hour is mostly just spent like sitting in like the cafeteria at the job place, at my work site, on my phone. Sometimes I would just work through my lunch because there was nothing else to do, you know? And then I would go home at 4:30 or 5, depending on the day. I would drive 40 minutes home. By the time I get home, it's starting to get dark because it's winter. And then immediately I would have whatever I could throw together in the kitchen, whether it be like a chicken breast and some broccoli, or maybe I would have like a frozen pizza or something. And I would sit down at my desk and I would start working on YouTube until like 10 or 11 p.m. And then I would get up and do it again. And I think I did that for about a year and a half. Wow. And eventually like the workload just became really overwhelming and there was too much on my plate. And my job where I worked as a water lab technician for this company, basically like experimenting on products and like suggesting ways to improve it. It wasn't even directly in the field that I like went to college for, which was kind of frustrating for me, not like a fulfillment thing. And we also had no funding for the research that I wanted to do on the products. So I spent most of my day just sitting there doing nothing for like 8 hours a day because I got all of my work done ahead of time, basically. And you can imagine that and I was also the only one in my lab. I was the sole water lab technician. So I was alone for like 12 hours a day, then I would go home and be alone for the rest of my day. And then maybe on the weekends, my friends would want to hang out. And at the time, I was also in a long distance relationship with someone in Boston. So my partner wasn't even around. So I was basically alone all the time. And that really got it got the better of me. And I had a panic attack on my way to work. Paramedics showed up. They told me, no, that was not a heart attack. I thought it was a heart attack because I've never had one before. And they go, yeah, no, that was a panic attack. And I've always been a very anxious guy. So learning that that was a thing that could happen caused me to have it again in fear of it happening again. So the fear of it happening again caused like a circle that was just damaging. And it kept me from being able to drive because it would happen every time I drove. I had to take like a week off of work to recover. I had to go to therapy. And eventually it even resulted in me just straight up moving back in with my parents. I was like, I felt like a failure. I went back home. And still throughout all of that, I was making YouTube videos because I enjoyed doing that. When I moved back in with my parents, eventually I finally got the ability to drive again. I started going into work and continuing my job. And then one day I just get home and I go like, look, I'm not getting better. I'm still having my panic attacks like multiple times a day. I think it's time for a change, and I don't know what that change is. And my parents are like, maybe get a job closer to like here, look for other employment opportunities. And then I'm sitting down with my therapist, and my therapist asked me like, so like, what do you do that makes you happy? I'm like, oh, I really like making YouTube videos. She goes, I mean, that's really nice. And I explain like, oh yeah, no, I earn about as much from my job doing this. It's like basically enough to sustain me. And she starts looking at me and she goes, why are you working this job? And I go, what? And she goes, why are you like driving out 40 minutes every day to work this job that doesn't make you happy, that is exacerbating like these anxiety, like this like anxiousness, right? And that was a really good point. And I never thought about it that way because I always liked the sure thing of having a salary. But at that point, my YouTube was earning me more than my job. So if I did have to make a choice, the choice would be the security of the guaranteed income from my job or making more money from YouTube by putting more time into it, but it not always being guaranteed. And given like where I was in life, I was like, I think I need to make this jump. And it was very scary. So I ended up talking to my parents about it. I just like walked down to their room and I go like, hey, I think I know what I need to do to fix what's going on with me. And it was funny because I always thought that my dad, I worked for his landscaping company, like growing up, like he's a very hardworking individual. He's an entrepreneur. And he's very much a, like, you earn the food on your plate kind of guy. Right. And my mom was always like she was also the same mindset, but like the more caring side of it, less like bluntness with her delivery. And I thought my mom would understand and my dad would be the one who was hesitant, but it was actually reversed. My dad liked the idea of me being self-sufficient and being my own boss. And my mom didn't like the idea of, not having that security of a salary. And I remember like my dad just convinced my mom, like he was just like, look, he's been doing this longer than he's been employed, longer than he was in college. It's what he likes to do. And like, if you're not doing what you like to do for a living, like what, it every day just like seems like the worst. Like if you just hate your job, it's not bringing you like any joy. You can separate your job and like your hobbies, but like having the opportunity to have them be one thing is something that is like very rare. And he talked her into letting me try it. And she was very strict with like, the rent that you're paying us is going up if you're doing this. She like really put me through the ringer. But that caused me to like really focus on YouTube and work extremely hard on it. And lo and behold, doing that for a couple of months, it wasn't immediate. Eventually, I think it was like May of last year, doing YouTube full time, traveling to events as part of that, and just like getting to like live for a while, going to hang out with like my friends that I had made over the years playing Pokemon. Really did like that drastic lifestyle change really did fix it. I haven't had a panic attack since I like changed my lifestyle. And yeah, no, I don't think I would have gone back and changed anything about that. When I was in college, I never wanted to be a full-time YouTuber. I wanted it to be a hobby. I never wanted this to be like my job, but I like took the opportunity, and like this is now what I do for a living. And yeah, no, it took a devastating life experience to get me to make the jump.
I'm very pleased to hear that you haven't experienced those panic attacks ever since you decided to make that jump, and very sorry to hear, of course, that happened in the first place and just how hard you were pushing yourself. And what advice would you give to anyone who's maybe in a similar place right now, who's really overly busy and not sure what the best thing to do is?
I think that if you're overly busy, it really is just like a matter of making a value judgment. They're difficult. Sometimes you have to cut certain things out of your life that you enjoy to make sure you're getting your priorities, in the right order and getting those done. But also valuing your own mental health and ability to be happy, sometimes people don't put that high enough. I certainly didn't when I was like doing YouTube and my job at the same time. I think that that's like the hardest thing to a lot of people. A lot of people have trouble accepting that their own mental health is something that should be, if not number two, maybe number one. Yeah, I think that like valuing yourself and making sure you live as happy of a life as possible, given whatever hand you're dealt, and making the most of it is just something that you have to do. Cut the things out of your life that either don't make you happy, or cut the things out of your life that are keeping you from feeling safe and secure, And that's the hard part.
Thank you very much indeed, Marcos, for that very, very sage advice. And now it's time to discover what's going to be the fifth Pokemon on your dream team, alongside Golisopod, Wo-Chien, Spinder, and Go-Go.
Wimpod, because Golisopod needs a friend, and I still like Wimpod. I appreciate just having the Wimpod too. I can't pick up Golisopod like this, and hold it in the air. But I can pick up Wimpod like that.
Yeah, Wimpod as well as Golisopod. That might be the first time ever on the show in more than 50 episodes that we've had Pokemon from the same evolutionary family in one dream team. But I love it. Well, Wimpod, welcome to the team. And before we round out this dream team and discover what the final Pokemon is going to be, your next topic here, as you've written, is your first day 2.
My first day 2 wasn't the Wo-Chien one. I
okay.
did manage. It was my first. I talked about my first day 2 with the Wo-Chien because
I
needed
see.
it for
Okay,
the bit.
great. Okay.
My first day 2 was actually something that it almost felt like starting over. After doing the Wo-Chien thing for like almost a year, and then going, I need to drop this if I'm going to qualify for Worlds, because it legitimately feels like relearning the game. There was never a time I was running calcs that Tablets of Ruin was not activated when I was like trying to figure out how much I was going to take, right? I was like, okay, we can cut the damage by this much. Getting my first day 2 without Wo-Chien involved me basically having to learn a brand new archetype. And luckily for me, around the time I dropped Wo-Chien was when the Kitakami decks got added to the competitive scene during the Teal Mask. So there was a lot of experimentation regardless. Like everyone was sort of learning new things. Actually, no, it wasn't the Kitakami decks. Actually, yeah, it was. And then we got like another DLC relatively soon after. So originally I was using like Araquanid teams because that was like a Kitakami Pokemon, if I recall.
I think that was the... no,
no,
it was
no.
Indigo Disc, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm forgetting my timing. Yeah, okay, no. So it was Indigo Disc around that time that I dropped it. And I ran an Araquanid team, and it was really cool because now I was playing offense. I found out that buttons... Did you know moves do damage?
I did, but it sounds like, that's my playstyle, not so much yours.
Yeah, so it was around this time that I started losing many win-ins. It was less so I was knocked out of contention early on and then secured points, and now it was just back to back to back. I'm losing round 9s. No one loses a round 9 like I do. I will find a way, but yeah, I think the first go of it was at Portland Regionals, and I ran this like Trick Room Araquanid team. It was Mystic Water Araquanid, Terra Water, and I had originally a Porygon 2 on it because I really liked Araquanid Porygon 2 back in like 2018 and like 2017, and I thought that would work. And then I made an adjustment that was really, really smart, if I do say so myself. I switched to Farigiraf. And the reason I switched to Farigiraf was because if I'm Terra Water, I'm not eating Grassy Glide super well on my Araquanid. And also, at the time, Ogerpon Wellspring was like the number one Ogerpon form that was getting used. And Araquanid doesn't care about Ivy Cudgel. It takes it very well from that Pokemon. It does care about Hornleech. Hornleech hurts. So what I was able to do was two things. Or it was three things that like Farigiraf Araquanid was like really cool. I had a minimum speed Farigiraf and an Araquanid that would actually outspeed the Farigiraf, because what I would do most games is I would set Rain Dance. I would Trick Room and Protect, and then I would Rain Dance with the Farigiraf, and then Terra Water Liquidation something. And if I remember, there was like a shot to one shot Incineroar. Like it was a roll. Sorry, Incineroar. Rillaboom. More impressive than the super effective hit. The not very effective hit. There was a roll to one-shot Rillaboom. And that was like the thing that really drew me to it. But also, I wouldn't have to worry about Grassy Glide because of Armor Tail. And the third thing was I was running Psychic Noise, because if I Psychic Noised on Ogerpon Wellspring, I was able to block a turn of Hornleech before they were able to actually get the move off. Since it's a healing move, Psychic Noise blocks it. And then that would make it so I could Leech Life the Ogerpon Wellspring and win the exchange. So I ran that, and I got very close to my day 2, and I fumbled it. And then the next event, I forget which one it was, fumbled it again, exact same way, round 9. And then Knoxville Regionals comes out, and I have this really good idea. This is around the time that people picked up on the fact that Ogerpon and Farigiraf, Ursaluna, Blood Moon, and Farigiraf are really, really strong. It was the normal spam era of that regulation. And if you remember that time, it was really hard to take a Terra Normal Life or Blood Moon with a helping hand, and it was just very frustrating. So I ended up building this team that I stuck with for a long time. It had like a Ogerpon Wellspring, a King Gambit, a Gouging Fire, but the thing that really held the team together was a Ting-Lu, the other ruin. Did you know there are 3 other ruins? So, because you have, I would put like an AV on the Ting-Lu. It also had Snarl. It had Throat Chop. It had Vessel of Ruin. And of course, we have an Ogerpon Wellspring that when it tears, it gets a special defense boost. So effectively going into this event, it was Knoxville Regionals. I just hard counter teamed Ursaluna Blood Moon while also maintaining options and other stuff, because we had Booster Energy, Howl, Gouging Fire, plus King Gambit. That was a very strong duo at the time. If I remember, that's the exact same event that James Evans, I forget if he got second or if he won that one. I think he got second. But yeah, he was running that duo at that event. I ran this not very standard team, like Gouging Fire, King Gambit was standard, but Ting-Lu plus Ogerpon is a little awkward and like not super normal at that time. But it worked, and I ended up just barely squeezing out a day 2, and by going X and 2. And then my first day 2, I went a lot further than I thought I did. I'm pretty sure I got either 18th or 19th at that event. I just woke up, locked in, and played very well. And that was the moment I was like, maybe I shouldn't ever pick up the snail again. maybe the snail was really holding back what I was able to do. But, I did actually end up picking up the snail again. And that turned out how it turned out. But I'm probably done now. I'm probably not going to use it again. Probably.
Okay.
I am running Ogre Pond Wellspring at Milwaukee, though. So maybe a different grass type.
Interesting. It just goes to show that, you put in the years and years of graft and just getting better, practicing, and then you make that first day 2. And not only that, but it just go all the way to 18th or 19th place. That's an absolutely incredible achievement. When you said, just to clarify a couple of things, you said, Ruin Pokemon, Treasures of Ruin, Tinglu, Chimpao, Wo-Chien, of course, and Chi-Yu. These Pokemon that are all part Dark type introduced in Scarlet and Violet. Their abilities each reduce a different stat on the field, essentially, be it attack, special attack, defense, or special defense. And normal spam, they're clicking normal type moves over and over again, basically. And the damage output from something like Blood Moon Nuzlocke are very hard to mitigate. Okay, so remind us how long ago, or roughly when it would have been, that you made that day 2.
That would have been around... I'm trying to think. It would have to been after December. I think it was January 2024.
Oh, okay. Right,
I think that's when Knoxville was. So January 2024 was around that, or December 2023. Around that time is when I would have made my first day 2.
Tell us how you were feeling about the fact that you'd finally made this day 2 without the Wo-Chien.
Oh, I was so happy. I immediately just went out, and my friends were really happy for me. Even Aaron Zhang, I think I can't remember if he was commentating or competing at that tournament. I think he was competing at that tournament. He personally congratulated me because he and I talk here and there, and he was like, "This guy's been working so hard for this one." And I think it was after I got that first day 2 that my standard for how I feel leaving a tournament, depending on how I did, was raised slightly, because then I was just like, I want more. I want more day 2s. I don't like ending my tournament after day 1. And that did lead to it almost feels like when you make your first day 2, it does feel like breaking a barrier, and it just gets easier after that. The first time you make a day 2, it's like the second time you do it, you go, wow, I did it again. And then you do it the third time, you go, oh, wow, I did it again. Something that was that felt kind of out of reach for me for a long time was finally just something that now happens. Yeah,
I think you're so right. It's a psychological barrier, I guess, is the operative word.
Definitely a psychological barrier.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic that you were able to break through that, and you're thriving. And a full circle moment, lovely full circle moment there, of the fact that you mentioned Aaron Zhang right at the start of the episode, the sort of content creators you would watch, and there he is congratulating you for making your first day 2. Absolutely fantastic. Well, now it's time to round out this dream team, Marco. So who's going to be Pokemon number 6?
Pokemon number 6 is going to be base form Necrozma.
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, I wondered if it would be something like a Araquanid, given that it was so instrumental in the team you just mentioned, but no, Necrozma. Okay, tell us more.
So this has to do more with my college life. Like I said, I studied physics, and one of the... I was lucky when I went to Illinois State. They didn't have a grad program, so a lot of undergrads were given the opportunity to do research. So the research that I was a part of was fabricating silicon nanoparticles for uses in optical tweezing, which is mumbo jumbo for making small glass spheres that you can move with light.
Wow.
Yeah, so effectively you would shoot a little laser into them with a Gaussian distribution, so it's weaker on the outside but really concentrated on the inside, the light going through it, and the bead would orient itself to the point with the highest concentration of light. And because they were like perfect spheres and so light and able to allow the, photons to pass through them, you were able to move a solid object with light. The way I explained it to my friends was we're making mini tractor beams. And it was called optical tweezing. And I think there was a paper on it back in like 2018. And we were just trying to create a medium for optical tweezing was like what my research was. So you would chemically bond these particles that we made. We found the way to make the particles, basically, that allowed you to do it. They're not anything special. It's basically glass spheres, but like you need them to be very perfect. So I would use like hydrofluoric acid and stuff and like try to get these things to be etched in such a way where they were perfect. So these have uses in, they have some like medical uses where you can like bond the little sphere, the nanoscopic particle, to something, and then you would shine a light on it, a laser, and you're now able to move it, where a physical pair of tweezers, no, you can't. It's too small. It's basically just like the most precise pair of tweezers you have ever seen because it's a laser. So because of that, and because of like my physics background in like college, just like I've always been very interested in light. So when Necrozma, did the light that burns the sky, and he does his animation and the entire world goes dark because he has all the light and then he shoots it at the Pokemon. I don't know. I have always loved Necrozma for that reason. I really like Necrozma.
Yeah, Necrozma, such history with light, and the fact that it represents so perfectly that aspect of your life that is actually quite removed from Pokemon, but it's wonderful that you're able to marry the two together. Well, fantastic. Necrozma, welcome to Marcus's Dream Team, and this means that your complete Dream Team at Marcos is Spinder, Golisopod, Wo-Chien, Go-Goat, Wimpod, and Necrozma. So, again, even though we don't have Arachnid, I'm thinking about it in hindsight, yeah, that would have been another bug and water type, but of course,
yeah, 3 of them.
Both that, legendary Necrozma psychic type there, then you've got the Wo-Chien, grass and dark, Spinder, normal, and Go-Goat, also grass. So, a couple of water types, a couple of grass types on there too, and Generation 3 up to Generation 9 with Wo-Chien, so pretty good spread there as well. But I have to ask you, what's going to be your partner Pokemon that you choose from this Dream Team?
It's going to be the Wimpod. You can put him on like a hat. You can wear
That's
him like
why.
a hat. Yeah, that's why. He's
You put him on
hat-shaped.
like okay.
Yeah.
You're a particular fan of hats, is that?
No, I'm more of a bandana kind of guy, but I just,
Yeah, true, yeah.
I don't know. I really like, in real life, I love isopods. I just think they're adorable. Some people think they're scary, but I think they're adorable, So having one and then like you can put it on your head. They don't bite. They're bottom feeders. They eat scum, They eat scum from like the ocean floor. They're completely friendly.
Yeah. No, I mean, what with the wind powered ability, it certainly seems like a friend rather than a fighter. It's going to be Wimpod. Wow. I mean, Wo-Chien, you have such a history with. Necrozma that represents perfectly that aspect of your life, as we said. But no, Wimpod. Well, there we go. Sometimes you just need to. Yeah. Sometimes you just need to be able to appreciate the broader aspects of things and not take these Pokemon too seriously. Well, Wimpod, you're going to be Marcos's partner Pokemon, and yeah, I mean, perfect really, because so many partner Pokemon we see riding on the shoulder of a trainer, but in this case, Wimpod just riding on your head. Fantastic. Mm-hmm. Now, totally different kind of question for you, Marcos. If you were a Pokemon, what do you think you'd be?
Oh man, what would I be? I really like lifting weights, and I have been boxing for the past couple of months, like half a year now. So probably fighting, but also with like my background in like physics and stuff, probably like fighting electric. We don't have a lot of those.
Okay.
Iron Hands? Any of those? Palmot, Iron Hands. Yeah, I'd be like Iron Hands.
Yeah, Iron Hands. I mean, certainly looks like it works out. And do you think you'd be fighting electric type? Yeah, I can really see that actually. I think that's very well Very well deduced. What do you all think? Do you agree that of all the Pokemon, more than 1,000 at this point, Marcos would be an Iron Hands? Let us know in the comments below. And speaking of you all, it's time for your community questions. I post online, as I always do, asking for questions for Marcos. Thank you so much for submitting them. Apologies I won't have time to feature all of the questions. I've had to narrow down the list, and I apologise if I mispronounce any of your names or handles, but really interesting ones here. So, Morgio on X would like to know, how have you found that your regimen affects your mental in general and your gameplay?
See, I know Moggy is also someone who really loves going to the gym, so I think he's referring to my training regimen. You see, for me, I think that it's almost like meditation. I don't like sit down and meditate ever. I think it's a goofy thing. It's good for other people. For me, I just feel goofy doing it. So going to the gym and lifting weights and putting my headphones in and just worrying about like the movement that I'm doing in that moment does relax me quite a bit. Like I said, I'm a very anxious man. Being able to just separate from the world for a little while and focus on that is a big boon to my mental game. And I find I play a lot better at like my locals if I go to the gym beforehand rather than just get up, eat a meal, and go, you know?
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, once you've established that routine, it will pay dividends to keep it up. That's wonderful to hear. And so, yeah, I guess that, I mean, what Moggy said here is in general and your gameplay, but I guess it affects everything. The fact that it just relaxes you in general, as you say, it means that when you're in those sort of game-deciding moments, when you're battling through, even, I don't know, do you find that it's still paying dividends even, say, like very late in the tournament, round 7, round 8?
I think later in the tournament, less so, but
Okay.
any kind of movement that I do during the tournament helps me out quite a bit. So if you ever see me at like events, it's pretty rare that between rounds I'm like sitting down and like sleeping. I usually just start I like pace around the event. I kind of just do a lap around the venue, just to like get the anxiety out. Moving and like being active helps a lot with my anxiety. So not being anxious going into a round is very helpful.
Thank you very much for that answer, Marcos, and thank you for your question, Moggy. Now, a question from Goodwin on Blue Sky. And I quote this first bit. You started working out a lot, and I find it really inspiring to see your improvement. And what Goodwin would like to know is, what are your takeaways to keep the habits?
Don't stop. It's very hard to give advice on how to keep a habit because my advice is keep the habit. Doing it the same time every day and like having habits in other parts of your life, like going to bed at the same time. That's the hard part for me. Going to bed at the same time every day, eating regularly, like make sure you're like having like your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner at the same time. Being habitual in other places in your life will help you be habitual in the places that I think it matters. For me, that would be going to the gym. If I am going to bed every night at 10 p.m., then I'm going to get up, get my work done, and I go to the gym after I stream. So if I stream at 2, I'm finished at 5. Now I get to go to the gym rather than have it be I'm late to my stream. It is now 8 p.m. Do I go to the gym? It closes in 2 hours. I didn't have dinner yet. Being habitual in other places helps you stay habitual where you want to.
Yeah, just cultivate that habit. Thank you very much for that question, Goodwin. Now, not sure how to pronounce this one, but Kylon1213 would like to know, what's your favorite video that you've made so far?
Ooh, okay. What is my favorite video I've made? So I would say that I'm very critical of everything I put out after the fact. I think that my favorite video that I've put out so far would have to be let's go with the worst Pokemon of every generation, just because that one had a lot of discourse on it, because I did it from a competitive view, and a lot of people just really liked commenting Magikarp, and I'm like, well, no, but yes. I don't know. It's my most successful video, and I have yet to watch it a second time, but I can only take like the feedback that I've been given. If that's like I think it has like over 800,000 views at this point. So if it's that successful, it has to be good.
Yeah, wow. And of course, there are videos like that alongside, I guess, more of your bread and butter content where you're just trying out new teams and seeing how they can do. Have you enjoyed that balance, that variety of doing both kinds of videos?
Yeah. I find that my philosophy with YouTube is like one for them, one for me. I really like talking about competitive Pokemon. And I find that reaching out to the non-competitive side of the community with these sorts of videos that introduces them to competitive concepts helps them get into my other videos that get them more into competitive. I've had a lot of people comment over the years saying like, I started watching you and now because you make like these videos and I kept watching you, now I'm like playing VGC and I'm going to my first local. I sort of consider myself like a funnel into competitive.
Yeah. Well, that's it's wonderful to get your perspective on that, and thank you for that question, Carl. Now, final question here from, again, apologies for any mispronunciation, Matthias Washburn. Would like to know, who was the first VGC player you met, and do you consider any to be your rival? And of course, the way Pokemon defines rival is, that essentially a best friend, actually, that inspires you to always get better.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Who was the first person that I met at a tournament? The first player that I ever met at a tournament would be Sam Temple, who runs a website called Nimbasa City Post, where he talks about like tournament results and stuff. I'm not sure how often it's updated nowadays, but he's a Chicago local, and I remember just encountering him at a tournament one day, being familiar with his website, and he doesn't compete so much anymore. He's pretty busy with life, but he still keeps up with stuff because I know his website does get updated still sometimes. So he's the first person that I ever met in the community, at least in person. As far as like rivals, I don't find myself comparing myself to other players too much. But I guess we'll just throw Jody there. Why not? We'll just put Jody in,
Jody has already. So what was your first encounter with Jody, and did you hit it off immediately? Because you guys are obviously quite close now.
Yeah. My first encounter with Jody was at Hartford Regionals. I believe we went to like an arcade. Like he just invited a bunch of players out, and I showed up. And we just started talking there, and we hit it off, and we hung out at Charlotte Regionals, and then we had like a great bonding experience at Portland Regionals. And he's just someone in the community who I connect with very well. Someone that I become very invested in emotionally as a friend, and someone who comes and visits me sometimes. Not all of your friends will like come and visit you just randomly, flying out and hanging out for a couple of days. I guess some other people who have done that for me would be Abdul, aka Big Slim, Tyson, Charisma Check, and a few other players. But again, like the social aspect of the game is basically like my favorite part of it. So yeah.
That's wonderful to hear. And sorry, just briefly, that first time that you met Jody, roughly when would that have been?
That would have been, I was still working my full-time job. I actually have a picture of us from then. I don't want to have to dig it out and see like the metadata and see when that was, but I think that would have been very late 2023, probably like May 2023 is my guess.
Okay. Yeah. So a good couple of years at this point, or at the time of recording. Well, thank you very much for those answers, Marcos, and thank you for all of your questions there. If you'd like to submit a question for a future guest on Chazingdra Chats, then you can find my socials at Chazingdra, Blue Sky, Instagram and TikTok, and of course on YouTube. That's where I post the call-outs for questions for my guests. I'd love to hear what you'd love to hear. So, Marcos, we've heard a lot about you up to now, but what's next for you?
I'm going to sit down and edit a video. And then I'm going to stream, and then I'm going to go to the gym. It is a Monday. I have to get to work. That is my Monday.
Lovely. I mean, more broadly, though, in terms of where you see... I appreciate the more immediate answer. Where you see things going in the immediate future.
I guess in the immediate future, just continuing what I'm doing until Pokemon Champions comes out, and then seeing where that takes us, because that is a dedicated competitive game from what I understand, which is something that we, unless you count the stadium games, which I don't think they're particularly the same, we've never seen that before, a dedicated competitive Pokemon game. I'm really excited for where that's going to take us and where that's going to take content, because, you know, there are these dedicated competitive games like Pokemon Unite. I'm excited to like cover news on that, and just seeing where I'm just so excited for that. It's going to be so cool. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. I have no idea what's going to come out of it, but I'm so excited.
Very nice, yeah. For anyone familiar, Pokemon Champions at the time of recording, yeah, as you say, Marcos, we don't have too much information on that, but we know it's a game on the horizon that seems to be focused around competitive Pokemon, so we'll have to see. Future certainly looks bright for you, Marcos. Potentially even as bright as the light that burns the sky, but we'll have to see. And final question for you, Marcos. Looking back from now as a successful Pokemon content creator and competitor, all the way back to the young Marcos, who first introduction to the franchise was Fire Red as well as Emerald, and then that long time you spent playing Pokemon Ruby as well. What advice would you give to that younger you?
Don't change a thing. Don't change it. Whatever you're going to do it. It works out pretty well. Just keep enjoying it. Maybe talk to more people about Pokemon.
Yeah, sure. I'm glad to hear that looking back overall, you're very happy with the way things have turned out. And if anything, yeah, of course, just continue to share the stuff that you are passionate about. Always wise. Thank you so much, Marcos. And the chat does not end there, because shortly we'll be getting into Marcos Perez, Moxie Boosted, Rapidash round, 15 or so minutes of bonus questions that Marcos has not prepared for, and there's so much that I want to learn more about for Marcos. I want to know how his relationship with the mainline games has evolved. Does he still enjoy playing through the main games? I want to hear more about the origins of the username Moxie Boosted. Maybe a little bit of a deeper dive into Marcos's physics study too. Advice for aspiring creators and competitors. Things beyond Pokemon too. If that sort of thing would interest you, then you can become a YouTube channel member, or you can head to my Patreon, which is linked below. And of course, becoming a member, you get access to all sorts of other perks as well. Fundamentally, I really appreciate the fact that you've listened to or watched this episode in its entirety. But if you want to get to know Marcos that little bit better and hang out with us for a little bit longer, then please do enjoy the Rapidash round for YouTube channel members or on the Patreon. But Marcos, thank you so much for joining me on the show. It's been a really illuminating time, and I know that people watching and listening will have taken a huge amount away, so thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. And if people want to keep up with you online, where can they find you?
YouTube.com/MoxieBoosted, X.com/MoxieBoosted, and Twitch.com/MoxieBoosted. It's all the same.
That's a good idea. Having it all the same, Moxie Boosted. Make sure you're catching Moxie's fantastic content. And now time for some YouTube spiel from this side of things. Once more, if you enjoyed, everybody, please do like and subscribe. Really does go such a long way. Just a couple of simple clicks, and it would mean the world. If you're listening on Spotify, please do leave a rating review as well. Those really help out. Drop a comment. Would love to know your thoughts on what Marcos has shared with us. And plenty more content on the channel too. I stream competitively, I stream casually, including shiny hunting, as well as challenge runs. Currently working on a big EYC video. I was casting that event. And vlogs of other events that I have casted too, as well as silly Pokemon comedy skits. If you're a fan of everything that the Pokemon video games have to offer, then my channel is the place for you. As you were saying, Marcos, you know, I'm in that time where I'm just trying things out and seeing what works. So I hope you enjoy what I'm putting out. And more than 50 episodes of this podcast with a broad range of guests, people in the competitive space, not just a video game, but trading card game Go Unite as well as more casual players and shiny hunters and YouTubers. There's bound to be something for everyone. So hashtag 6Pokemon 1 Life Story is what you can use to spread the word about the show. You can hop into my Discord community that's linked below as well. Hop into Chazindra's Chocolate Factory. It'd be a pleasure to have you join the merry folk. Episodes of this podcast drop every Wednesday, and I'm at Chazingdra on X, Blue Sky, Instagram, and TikTok. Alright then, Marcos, so with that spiel out the way, it's time to get into your Rapidash round. If you're not joining us over on Patreon or as a YouTube channel member for that, then it's goodbye from Marcos, and it's goodbye from me. See you next time on Chazingdra Chats, where there'll be another 6 Pokemon 1 Life Story. So then, Marcos, how are you feeling about these bonus questions?
I'm excited to hear what they are. He said I wouldn't be prepared for them, so I'm like, oh. Like my social security number? Like what?
Let's start with the ones that I teased at the end there. Let's start off, first of all, what advice would you give to aspiring creators and competitors?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people have not been scared to ask me for advice on content creation. I try to make myself as approachable on that front as I can. And what I always tell people is that